All right, Integrated Math 3, this is part 2 of the test review that is going to go along with your taking the actual test. All right, so let's continue with number 8, and it's just simply a division problem. So we're going to use synthetic division. So you take this last term and you change the sign on it to make it a 4. Copy these in. Bring the first one down. 4 times 8 is 32. Negative 34 plus 32 is negative 2. 4 times 2 is negative 8. 15 minus 8 is 7. 4 times 7 is 28. Negative 20 plus 28 is positive 8. 4 times 8 is 32. It's positive 32. This comes out to be 0. It means there's no remainder when that last number is 0. So you started with a quartic, an end of the fourth, so that means your first term is going to be end of the third, end of the second, and then your constant. Okay, and that's the answer. Alright, next one is a cubic. We have to factor it. There's no x down here, so we can't factor out an x and turn it into a quadratic. So it's pretty clear that you can do this by grouping. So you put the parentheses around this and around everything, including that negative sign. Okay, so clearly 4 can come out of here, and there's an x to the third x squared, so they have x squared in common. So you can bring out a 4x squared. Okay, and 4x squared times what gives you 4x to the third? That would be x. 4x squared times what gives you 4x squared? That would be 1. Okay, now we're going to bring the negative 25 out. They both have that in common, so negative 25. Negative 25 times what gives you negative 25x? That would be an x. And negative 25 times what gives you negative 25? That would be a positive 1. Okay, so we have this in common. We put the square brackets around it. Bring the x plus 1 out. And inside we have 4x squared minus 25. Okay, this is going to have real roots because there's a negative sign. There is some number that when you square and multiply by 4, that'll be a positive number. Minus 25 will give you 0. But when there's a minus sign there, it's going to be real roots. We can see this is a difference of squares. 4 is a perfect square of 2, x squared is a perfect square of x, and 25 is a perfect square of 5. So we go ahead and do this. Let's go ahead and write our equation for difference of squares. A squared minus b squared equals a plus b times a minus, a minus b. Okay, so you have to determine what your a is and what your b is. Okay, so what squared gives you 4x squared? Just take it one piece at a time. 2 squared will give you 4, and x squared will give you x squared. And then for 25, it's simply 5. So this is your a. That's just a sideways equal sign. This is the b, is 5. So come up here to this. A is 2x, plus b is 5. And a is 2x, minus b is 5. Alright, and then you still have this factor right here that you got at the very beginning. So that's going to be x plus 1. And you do that, and there's your answer. Okay, that's all the factors. It's asking for factors, not zeros or roots. Okay, let's keep going. Number 10 is a subtraction problem. Okay, so the way you set these up is you look for the highest exponent, the highest order. It's x to the 5th, so you're just going to write columns. X to the 5th, x to the 4th, and that just represents the constant. Alright, and you can make columns out of this if you would like that. Okay, with a subtraction, the best way to handle it is turn it into an addition problem. So we're going to come up here and make it a plus sign, and then we're going to flip all the signs here. So this becomes negative 4x to the 5th. This becomes positive 4x to the 4th. Negative 5x to the 3rd. Negative x. There's no x squared term. And positive 4. Okay, so all I did was really multiply through by negative 1. But that took away the negative sign from out here, so now it's a positive sign. So what we're going to do is come down here and we're going to add. So the first polynomial remains unchanged. 2x to the 5th. There's no x to the 4th term. I'm going to draw a line here also. And now we're going to come over and take this. No x squared term. And now we add 2x minus 4x, 2x to the 5th minus 4x to the 5th. Okay, and that's your final answer. Alright, let's go ahead and do this. This is a multiplication. So I have 2 terms there and 3 terms there, so I'm going to go ahead and do 3 rows and 4 columns. Okay, and over here I'm going to put the x minus 3. This one you can kind of color in like that. And this. Okay, and now you multiply. The benefit of doing this, I usually just do it like this. I kind of foil it out. You can miss a term. This kind of assures you got to fill in all the boxes. You won't miss a term. So 3x squared times x is 3x to the 3rd. X times 5x is 5x squared. X times 6 is 6x. Negative 3, x squared. Negative 3, negative 5. Negative 3, negative 6. Okay, once you're done doing that, scratch out things you're done with. You're not going to use these anymore, and you don't want to accidentally add them in. Now, if you want to set up columns like we did up here with the subtraction, x to the 3rd, x to the 2nd, x, you can do that. I'm just going to go ahead and pick them off here. So 3x to the 3rd. Scratch it out. Now x squared, so we have 5x squared, negative 9x squared. You add those, you get negative 4x squared. Again, don't do this in your head if you're not comfortable. Okay, do it whatever you have to do to be sure you get the right answer. Okay, and then I have negative 15x plus 6x is negative 9x. And then negative 18. And that's the final answer. All right. Number 12. Alright, this is kind of a quirky problem, so let's just do it together and then you'll know how to do it on the test. It says, what number A, see there's A right there, would result in x minus 4 being a factor. So if it's a factor, it means it's going to divide into this evenly. So we're going to use synthetic division. We're going to take this number, the minus 4 part, and make it a positive 4 and a plus sign. And now we're going to take each of these coefficients. So the first one is 1. The second one is negative 1. The third one is the negative a. And the fourth one is 8. Alright, so they just want to see if you can use a little reasoning here to get this. The first thing we know is, if it's going to be a factor, there's going to be no remainder. If there's no remainder, this last term is going to be 0. If this last term is 0, this term has to be negative 8. So you can fill those in right away. All right, if this is going to be negative 8, then 4 times this number is going to have to be negative 8. So that's going to be negative 2. So I'm almost doing it backwards here, but now I'm going to have to go forward. Okay, so here we go. So we bring down the 1. 4 times 1 is 4. Negative 1 plus 4 is positive 3. 4 times 3 is 12. Okay, so now you ask what number, A, such that you put a negative sign on it, plus 12 gives you negative 2, and this number would have to be 14, because the negative sign's already there. So negative 14 plus 12 gives you negative 2. So A equals 14. That's the answer to that. Be careful, A is not negative 14. The negative sign is already there because of that. So what the actual A value is 14. Okay? That's, a little bit of a tricky problem, but you can see it didn't take very much writing, and now you know how to do it. So again, watch this. I did it kind of fast. Watch it a second, a third time if you have to understand how to do the test question. All right, let's keep going. Number 13. Quartic function with a leading coefficient of 1 and 2 double zeros. Okay, so you get to make up your own. You can't use the one I'm going to use. Double zeros means it's going to have 4 factors, but 2 of them are going to be the same. So it's only going to touch the x-axis in 2 different places. So I'll just give you an example, and it's easy to think of a different example than mine that doesn't use exactly the same numbers. But does the same thing. So a quartic is going to be an x squared and an x squared. Okay, and one way I know I can get double roots is by making these two things the same. So they're going to factor exactly the same, so you're going to get 2 of each of the roots of this, so you'll have double roots. So one thing I know will factor is this: difference of squares. So we wrote the formula a few questions back. A squared minus b squared equals a plus b times a minus b. So let's just do it for this one. Something squared gives us x squared. Something squared gives us 4. So that's going to be x, and that's going to be 2. Okay, so this one is going to be, this one factor, just this one right here, is x plus 2 times x minus 2. I'll go ahead and write it again. A squared minus b squared. Okay, there it is. So there's my a and b. There's my a and b. And now I did have the same thing here, so I'm going to just write it again. Okay, so you see these two are the same. Those are double roots. And these two are the same. Those are double roots. So what are the zeros? Or those are double, they're double roots, they're factors, but what are the roots? Well, this one to go to 0 is going to be a negative 2, this one's going to be a positive 2, this one's going to be a negative 2, this one's going to be a positive 2. So they're only going to touch at negative 2 and positive 2. They're double roots, but they only touch at one place. So I'm going to put negative 2 right here, and positive 2 right here. It's just 2 squares to the right, 2 squares to the left. And what you have to simply know is this. The only other thing you need to know is that a quartic with a coefficient of positive 1 is going to look kind of like a W. It's going to kind of have this shape. Okay, go on to Desmos and plot this. Go on to Desmos and plot this and see what it looks like. Okay, so it's going to look like this. I don't know what the y-intercept's going to be. It's going to be somewhere around there. And it's going to look something like that. So you just have to do this problem on the test. You cannot use these. You got to come up with your own, okay? But it shouldn't be very hard to do that. Okay, these are difference of squares. Okay, let me get the whole thing on screen for you there. So that's what I have for that. Okay, and we'll move on. And we're going to number 14. There was an issue with this one that I wanted to change one of the, that's why in period 1 I did not finish this problem. So here it is, okay? So it says write an equation of a polynomial with roots of 5, negative 2, negative 2i, positive 2i. So that's pretty easy to do. Here's the factors. What will this make go to 0? It'll make x minus 5 go to 0. So I put a positive 5 in there. X minus 5 is 0. Okay, with this one, it's going to take x plus 2. Negative 2 will make x plus 2. Negative 2 plus 2 go to 0. Now we have the imaginary roots. So this is going to be negative 2i. So that's going to be x plus 2i. So negative 2i plus 2i would go to 0. And this one's positive 2i, so that's going to be x minus 2i. Positive 2i minus 2i goes to 0. So there they are. Now, to solve this problem, you got to get rid of the imaginary numbers. You can't plug 1 into there and get a positive 120 with all that. Well, you can, but we're going to go ahead and expand it first. So the easiest way, I think, to expand it is put square brackets around this. And the square brackets are just like parentheses. They just look different so that you don't get them confused. Otherwise, you have too many sets of parentheses there. I don't like double parentheses. It doesn't look, it's confusing looking. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and expand this. So x times x is x squared. X times 2 is 2x. Negative 5 times x is negative 5x. You add those together, you get negative 3x. And negative 5 times 2 is negative 10. Over here, x times x is x squared. X times negative 2x is negative 2xi. I should have said times 2xi. X times 2xi is positive 2xi. Now this one can get tricky, this last term. It's 2 times negative 2 gives you negative 4. And I times I is the square root of 1 times the square root of 1. That gives you negative 1. Just remember I squared, or I times I, is negative 1. You multiply those two together, you get positive 4. So this is going to be plus 4. And these two terms you can see are going to cancel out. Those two right there, just x them out. So what you end up with here is x squared plus 4. And that. So let's go ahead and multiply these. So I have an x squared here and a 4 here. X squared here. Okay, and that's what we have. Okay, so let's go ahead. You don't need this. So x squared times x squared is x to the 4th. X squared times negative 3x is negative 3x to the 3rd. X squared negative 10 is negative 10x squared. 4 times x squared is 4x squared. 4 times negative 3x is negative 12x. 4 times negative 10 is negative 40. Okay, so now that you're done with these, just scratch them out. So now you're going to add these in. So you have x to the 4th, that's the only x to the 4th term you have. You have negative 3x to the 3rd, that's the only x to the 3rd term you have. 4x squared negative 10x squared is going to give you negative 6x squared. And I should cross these out as I use them. Negative 12x. Negative 40. Okay, so what they're saying is that if I put a 1 in here, I should end up with 120. If I don't, I have to multiply it by some factor a to make that happen. So let's go ahead and put a times, and let's put a 1 in here. 1 to the 4th is 1. 1 to the 3rd is 1 times negative 3. 1 squared is 1 times negative 6. 1 times negative 12 is negative 12. And negative 40. And that has to equal 120. Okay, so let's add these up. 1 minus 3, and again, do it on a calculator. Don't try to do it in your head if that's not your thing. 1 minus 3 is negative 2. Minus 6 is negative 8. Minus 12 is negative 20. Minus 40 is negative 60. So this all down here equals negative 60. And a times negative 60 has to equal 120. So some of you can do this in your head. If you can't, just divide both sides by 60, by negative 60. and you'll end up with a equals -2. So the answer, I'm going to write it over here where I have some space, is f of x equals, the a is -2. I think I'm going to run out of space here. Let me write it up here. Okay, so here's going to be your final answer up here. A is -2, and I should write f of x first. Start that again. Okay, f of x. You always have to write a function either y equals or f of x equals -2. Okay, times, and you can write all of this or this. This is the standard form, and this is the factored form. So I'm going to actually go up to the top. I'm going to change it again. I'm going to write it in both ways. I'm just changing location. I'm going to change what I'm doing. I'm going to have all of this with the a on the front. That's -2 times x minus 5. Okay? And then I can also write it says both factored and standard form. This is standard form. So it would be f of x. These are both the answer. You need both of them to actually do what the question asked you to do. Is -2. And then I tend to put these in square brackets when I do it like this. You don't have to. Okay, it could be curved bracket if you want. Okay, so this is factored form. It said factored and standard. This is factored, and this is standard. Okay, so that's the answer. I'm going to put a big circle around that whole thing up there. Okay, that's the answer up there. Okay, all right, let's move on. 2 more to go. Okay, straight up division problem. Synthetic division, that's a +1, so you come over here with a -1. And your coefficients are 1. 1. Okay, so the last one is a remainder. We started with an x to the 4th, so we're going to have 1x to the 3rd plus 9x squared plus 2x plus 4. And then the remainder is going to be 2. Put a plus sign here first. Put a big parenthesis. It's going to be 2 over your original divisor, k plus 1. Okay, and that's the answer. All right, last one. Suppose a cubic polynomial function fx has zeros at 1, 3, -4. Find fx in factored form if f of 2 equals 12. This is very similar to number 14. Okay, so we simply can go ahead and write out our factors. That's going to be x minus 1, x minus 3, x plus 4. Okay, so 1 makes this go to 0, 3 makes this go to 0, -4 makes this go to 0. Okay, so there's going to be an a in front of this and an f of x here. Okay, so if it says if we plug 2 into for x, we're going to get -12. So let's do that. So a 2 minus 1. And I made a mistake on this in first period. For those of you that were with me on Wednesday doing this, I did it wrong, and Dan pointed out my mistake. So we'll do it right this time. So 2 minus 3 is -1. So 2 minus 3, let's go ahead and write that first. 2 plus 4 equals, and that's going to equal -12. So let's go ahead and do the math. So it's a times 2 minus 1 is 1. 2 minus 3 is -1. 2 plus 4 is 6. And that's going to equal -12. Okay, well 1 times 1 is -1 times 6 is -6. So I have a times -6 equals negative 12. And I think you all can just look at that and see that, stay on screen here, see that a is going to equal 2. So a equals 2. 2 times negative 6 will give you negative 12. So the way you write the final function, and they say only in factored form, you don't have to expand it like you did 14, is going to be this. It's going to be f of x equals 2, and then these factors up here. And that's your final answer. Okay, so that takes care of the exam review. I really only left one problem for you to do. It was one of the graphing problems that I left for you to do on your own. You can come to me for help on this anytime in the next couple of days. This is due Saturday morning. You're getting it on Thursday morning, so you have 48 hours to do this. Come to me to tutoring. I'll help you. I will not help you directly on test questions, but all of these questions are exactly like the test questions. But I will help you on these questions, okay, if you don't understand how to do them, okay? So good luck on the test, and we'll see some of you in class today and some of you tomorrow.